From the very first moment the bell rang for Mother's Day tea, 13-year-old Lily Martinez felt something heavy pressing on her chest, the kind of weight that made every breath feel like a quiet apology. She had gotten used to people staring at her mom, Jessica Martinez, a tattooed single mother who wore band t-shirts, had ink crawling up her neck, and worked in a tattoo shop that respectable people walked past rather than walked into. But nothing had prepared Lily for what would happen in the school auditorium that day, when a simple celebration turned into the moment that would shatter her and then rebuild her life in the most unbelievable way. And it all started with a sentence that cut deeper than anything a child should ever hear. If you believe that mothers deserve respect, that people shouldn't be judged by their appearance, and that love comes in all forms, please like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more true, inspiring stories like this to life. That afternoon, Lily had sat rigidly in the decorated auditorium, her fingers trembling as she watched the other mothers arrive, designer handbags, pearl necklaces, perfectly highlighted hair, women who looked like they stepped out of magazine pages. Then her mother walked in. Jessica wore her usual black jeans, a vintage Metallica shirt, combat boots, but it was the tattoos that made everyone's heads turn. Full sleeves on both arms, a model on her neck, color and ink covering every visible inch of skin. Lily saw the other mothers whisper. She saw the smirks, the raised eyebrows, the way they pulled their daughters slightly closer, as if ink was contagious. Mrs. Catherine Whitmore, the PTA president, a woman who measured worth by zip codes and measured character by clothing labels, approached them with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She leaned close to Lily, her expensive perfume suffocating, and she said in a voice just loud enough for nearby tables to hear that perhaps her mother would be more comfortable waiting outside, that this was a refined event, and that her mother's appearance was not appropriate for young children to see. She suggested that people who decorate themselves that way often lack judgment, and maybe Lily should consider what message that sends. Lily froze. The words hit like ice water, worse than any insult thrown at her, worse than any fall, because they struck where a child is most vulnerable, her pride in her parent. Heat rushed to her face, shame clawing at her throat, and she couldn't speak, couldn't defend, couldn't do anything but feel her eyes burn with tears. Jessica heard every word. Lily watched her mother's face, saw the flash of pain, the way her shoulders dropped just slightly, the way her hand tightened on her purse. The room felt like it was closing in. Other mothers pretended not to hear, but their silence was agreement. Their judgment hung thick in the air. Jessica started to turn, started to leave quietly, her head lowering in a way Lily had never seen before. And Lily let her. She didn't call out. She didn't run after her. She sat there, drowning in shame, wishing her mother looked like everyone else's, wishing she could disappear, wishing she had a different life. But fate has a way of perfect timing, because at that exact moment, the auditorium's back doors burst open and 12 women walked inside. The room went silent. Every head turned. These weren't country club women. These were warriors. All 12 had visible tattoo sleeves, neck pieces, hand tattoos, bold and unapologetic. But they wore their ink with fierce dignity. Behind them walked more women, one in military dress uniform with a chest full of medals, one in surgical scrubs with a hospital ID badge, one in a sharp business suit carrying a leather briefcase, one in a firefighter's uniform, one with a police detective's badge, and one carrying a stack of published books. They walked straight to Jessica, surrounding her like a protective wall. Mrs. Whitmore stepped back, her confidence cracking. The other mothers shifted uncomfortably. Lily stared, confused, terrified, desperately hoping this was real and not some humiliating mistake. The woman in military uniform stepped forward first. Her voice was steady, commanding, the voice of someone who'd led soldiers into battle. "My name is Captain Maria Santos, United States Army, to tours in Afghanistan." She turned to face Mrs. Whitmore and the room. "Jessica Martinez gave me my first tattoo when I came home with PTSD and survivor's guilt. I'd lost 3 men under my command. I couldn't sleep, couldn't function. Therapy wasn't reaching me. Jessica designed a memorial piece, a tribute to my fallen brothers. She sat with me for 60 hours across 6 months, unpaid, while I cried, while I shook, while I remembered their faces. Each session was therapy. Her art saved my life when nothing else could. A woman in surgical scrubs spoke next, her voice thick with emotion. Dr. Rachel Kim, pediatric surgeon at Children's Hospital. She pulled back her sleeve, revealing an intricate tattoo covering her entire forearm. I was a burn victim at 16. An accident left 40% of my body scarred. I wanted to die. I couldn't look at myself. Jessica learned medical tattooing, spent 2 years training in scar camouflage techniques. She tattooed over my burns. She gave me my body back. I perform surgery on children every single day with steady hands and confidence because Jessica taught me that scars tell stories of survival, not shame. One by one, they told their stories. The firefighter Jessica had tattooed a memorial portrait of her 6-year-old daughter, who died of leukemia. Artwork so beautiful the family used it at the funeral. The detective Jessica remembered a unique tattoo on a victim and helped solve a cold case that saved 3 girls from a trafficking ring. The author Jessica illustrated an entire children's book series that hit the New York Times bestseller list. A young woman, barely 20, Jessica had refused to tattoo her as a teen, then mentored her through art school. She's now a successful graphic designer. Then a woman with tears streaming down her face stepped forward. Her voice shook. Jessica covered the name tattoo my abusive ex-husband carved into my shoulder. She did it for free. She held me while I sobbed. She gave me information for shelters, for lawyers, for therapists. She checked on me every week for a year. I'm alive because she cared. The woman in the business suit opened her briefcase and pulled out documents. Jessica runs a non-profit called Ink of Hope. She provides free tattoo removal and cover-up work for human trafficking. Survivors removing brands their traffickers forced on them. For former gang members trying to leave that life. For self-harm scar coverage for suicide attempt survivors. For mastectomy patients after breast cancer. She donates 30% of her income to women's shelters. She's won humanitarian awards. She's been featured in medical journals for her therapeutic tattooing techniques. The principal, who had been standing at the side of the room, stepped forward, her face pale. Mrs. Whitmore, you need to leave. Now. Her voice was ice. She turned to Jessica. Ms. Martinez, I had no idea about your work. I'm deeply sorry for what just happened. Would you and your friends be willing to speak to our students? I think they need to understand that art heals, that service matters, and that we should never judge anyone by their appearance. What followed was extraordinary. The 12 women taught the students about tattoo history, ancient Japanese, Polynesian, Egyptian cultures using body art for thousands of years. They explained medical tattooing for burn victims, cancer survivors, accident victims. They showed pictures of Jessica's non-profit work, of trafficking survivors crying with relief as their brands disappeared, of women reclaiming their bodies, their stories, their lives. Even the most skeptical mothers began leaning forward, listening, some wiping their eyes. By the time the presentation ended, Lily stood up, tears streaming down her face, and walked to her mother. The auditorium watched as she wrapped her arms around Jessica and whispered, "I'm sorry. Mom, I'm so sorry." Jessica held her daughter, her own voice breaking. "Baby, never be ashamed of me. These tattoos, each one is someone's story I helped tell. This body is a library of second chances. This ink is hope made visible." Mrs. Whitmore returned, her face red, her voice small. "I was wrong. I'm sorry." She didn't justify. She didn't explain. She simply acknowledged her cruelty. And sometimes that alone takes courage. Lily walked out of that auditorium holding her mother's hand high, her head higher. The 12 tattooed women walked beside them like an honor guard, fierce and proud. Other students rushed to Lily, asking about her mom, saying how cool she was, saying how brave. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that mothers come in all forms, that art can heal, and that love matters more than appearance. That evening, Jessica and Lily sat together in the tattoo shop. Jessica sketching a small design, a mother-daughter symbol. They get together. When Lily turned 18, "You don't have to get it," Jessica said softly. Lily looked at her mother, really looked at her, and said, "I want the world to know you're my mom. I want them to see I'm proud." Sometimes the most unlikely heroes wear ink and band t-shirts. Sometimes the people we judge are the ones healing the world quietly. And sometimes the greatest love is a mother who never stops being herself, even when the world tells her she should.